Dalid, the fourth day of Hanukkah. May she rest in peace. Vega Tzipras Avigdor passed away, and I just came back from New York, and I wanted to do something in her memory. That her neshama should, of course, go up, raise higher, and the best thing you could possibly do is Torah and mitzvahs. You know, learning Torah, doing mitzvahs in b'shem, in the name of the deceased, gives the neshama the possibility of.
In Chabad, there's something called a farbrengen. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the word. Farbrengen, historical context to farbrengen is back in Russia, and by the way, I'm coming from Russia. I was in Poland and in Moscow. I was in Warsaw, Moscow 2 weeks ago, and it was there until 1915, 1916, when the fifth Rebbe of Lubavitch, Reb Sholem Ber, moved that a farbrengen, a real farbrengen. I don't mean just a speech, like, you know, I'm giving now a class, a talk. This is not a farbrengen. It's a very nice event, but it's not a farbrengen. Together for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. And you don't look at the watch. You don't even have. You don't care about time. You care about, can I find deep inside? Naturally, when you do that, it lends itself to critiquing. Is the culmination of learning a davening. I had a great uncle. His name was Reb Mendel Futterfasser, known, and he would say the following. He said it in Yiddish, and it could be that when you hear the problem and the issue, and you know that person, and you say, you're a real, and if you don't say it, you think it. You say, I know who you are. What, giving it to the person with, all of a sudden you lose the sincerity, in Hebrew, the tmimut, right? Tmimut, sincerity, and you're now in the cloak of Hasidism, in the cloak. I went over to our mashpia of blessed memory, Reb Melech Tzvibel, who was a very special Jew. He said, you know, I'm learning, and I'm davening, and I'm farbrengen, but I feel an ego. Whatever I do, it's I, and again I. And I'm doing it. And I don't like that. I worst and all that, well, your character is lacking in this area and in this area. That's what he told me. I should get myself. She was in Chabad, if I bring as well. Anyway, Meir was a, and he had a chavrusa, he had a friend, and they were learning Thursday night. And they were learning late into the night. The next morning, when you go to sleep 3, 4 in the morning, it's difficult to get up at 7, right? Especially for young children. He's gonna, you know, about 8 o'clock or so. At 7 o'clock, his father comes into the room. And he's giving it to him. And he walks out of the room. The friend who was woken up by the Marin County, California, as a shliach for the Rebbe in Northern California across the Golden Gate Bridge near San Francisco. And the main person who asked me to come to be the rabbi there is a doctor, not a pediatrician, a gynecologist at Kaiser, the California, you know, medical system, hospital system. A good Brooklyn boy who studied. I'm from Brooklyn. What am I doing with my life? You and I, same high school, we met the same girls, we went to the same movies, and I know you're not Orthodox, but still, pork and shrimp. Can't you eat something else that's more neutral? So he asks me, do I give him permission to curse out his friends, to chastise them, to give them criticism? If you aren't playing golf with him, then you don't have a relationship. The fact that you guys are both gynecologists, which was authored by Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, if the spirit of dominion, of governing, of control comes upon you, don't forsake your place. Because healing, inclination, referring to the Yetzer Hara, will not, it won't dominate, and that the cure to the Yetzer Hara is Pisgome Deoraisa, means verses and phrases of Torah. Now he brings another interpretation, the Midrash. The Midrash on the verse in Koheles, right? The first interpretation comes from something called Targum Yonason. The second yut, Anusasecha, comes from the word anava, of modesty, be humble. You are putting up language. Ella, it means that he saw himself. He's the leader. He's the rabbi. He's the scholar. He's the prophet. Look at this. He was four things. He had four things going for him. Look at this yichus. Chassan HaMelech, he was the son-in-law. He's a big macher. Because the spirit of dominion and governing and control that comes to a person who's given that position, don't forsake your place, and always remember to be humble. Yes, you are the CEO of the company. You are the entrepreneur. You're the one that's the shaker, the baker and the shaker. That's great. But remember, who gave you this talent? The position of authority. You'll see it. Not understand it, but you'll relate to it. And it's a very important point, because this touches upon the whole idea of authority and rabbinics and rabbi and leaders, which is in every congregation, in every community, who are the... Have you ever asked yourself a question? Why do I kosher or not? We're talking about a path in life. A path in life. Who can tell you what your path is? There, it's way beyond just rabbinics. It's a soul experience. So his question here is, and what he's alluding to is, that if the Torah, if King Solomon, according to the second interpretation of the Midrash, talking about a person who is on that level, an authority moron, according to the Rashic explanation, the contradiction between the first part of the verse and the second part of the verse. Right? The compare and contrast is an essential part of contrast, understanding both sides. And I'm telling you that the Lubavitcher Rebbe that I saw, and I'm not saying no one else is this way, but what I saw, because I was his student and his chassid, what I saw was an individual who took responsibility for the entire generation. And when thousands of people listening to what he can have what he wants, which he never, because he wasn't that type of a person. Torah, and how much information you have, and how charismatic you are, and how titles and how many degrees you have after your name, the PhD and the MS and the MA, and all the different amounts to one big ego, and at the end of the day, you don't want to be with that person. You're not comfortable, you're not interested, but they know so much. You come in to hear a lecture, the leaders, you hear that? He's speaking to the rabbis and the CEOs and the big machers. And they're really doing something that's incredible. Halachic Judaism says only 10% Meiser you're obligated. More than that, you want to be real frum, you want to be real religious, give 20%. What about someone who gives 40%, 50%? A doctor once, he's already in a little memes, he passed on, comes over to me once, he asks me, he was also in California when I was there as a student, older student, he says, broken from the right, gazettes from the left, gas coming from it's a mess. He had a nicer designer suit than I. And I said to myself, if this guy cannot dress me, he's worth money. Now, that's faulty thinking on part of this fellow, right? But nevertheless, what's the point? The point is that the line between doing something to be ostentatious versus doing something to be genuine is a very... You're smiling. What's the answer?
Well, you know the answer.
You know the answer. It's part of it. When you think about yourself, you will be not as happy. I walked into a lawyer in 1981 or 82 on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. I would ask him to put on film. This was Friday. I'm proud of who I am. But this week I asked you to close the door. I said, yeah, I'm actually wondering why. It was very interesting that you did that. And Hashem says, fella, you need to be humbled. Yourself the right way, I can humble you and be careful. But is that the only way? And is that response? No. There are other reasons why a person has to go through whatever they go through. Reincarnation, that aspect tonight. Hashem, God Almighty, says to the person, if you think about yourself, open kitchen there 24/7. So if you want a coffee and a piece of cake, you got it. If you want a banana, milk, you got it too. And if you want shalt, you got it too. That's not why I go there. I go there because I love to begin my day with broken people. People are homeless. Yidden, Jews. Realize that you're a nothing. You're everything, and at the same time, you're a nothing because it's all about Hashem and what you can do for the material, which we'll discuss at another time. But this is I think, a very important point is to stop and think and ask yourself, I'm about to be, about to give criticism to my spouse, to my employer, to my son, to my rabbi, to my student. And what have you done to give yourself criticism? You know the famous saying, Mum shebach al taymer lechavrach. Your own blemish that you have, don't say it to your friend. You're guilty. So how can you? You're a hypocrite. So, saying to his own Hasidim, let's bring it back to that Hayom Yom that we began with. You know what he said? You're out of Habrainen, and you're doing Hasidic group therapy, and you want of Victor Zev's mother, and it's also the end of Hanukkah today. The 8th day is the culmination of the lights of Hanukkah, and we're entering the month of Teves. We are in Teves. What does Teves come from? Tov, good. It's a month of, to internalize it, not cursory, superficial, experiences. The whole idea of Hasidus, the Baal Shem Tov, to Judaism 300 years ago and going strong and stronger, is to experience God and Torah in an internalized way with happiness and with excitement. But that also includes tough questions. After my grandfather was murdered by the Nazis, and I went to his town where he was murdered, Makov Mazayetz, 45 minutes outside of Warsaw. And I went to my grandmother's town and found her marriage record, married in 1935, where her father to a synagogue. So, in Yiddish we say there's an expression, "Daf halten Kopf." Kopf is a head, right? Halten means to hold. You have to hold your head. What does it mean to halten Kopf? You have to be strong. You have to be focused. Don't lose yourself to all the whims and issues and the anti-Semitism that's happening now all around us. From where I come. And the goal also includes never again. My little grandchildren have to escape 8 o'clock in the morning before the parade starts so they don't see all the mishigas. So someone comes into the shul, my daughter says to me, "Ta, if she gives me her hand, I'm not shaking her hand." So I say, "Shtar Nesara, name is Shtar Nesara." Why not? Because she's not a she, she's a he.